And I'm from this neighborhood, which is one of the richest neighborhoods in the world, full of affluence, lots of cash flying around, but I don't want to live here. Why?
World Beast 9000.
Hey there folks, this is Eric, World Beast 9000, and I grew up in that house right there. And I do not live in Toronto, Canada anymore. It's Toronto, Canada, the biggest city of one of the richest countries in the world, and I'm from this neighborhood, which is one of the richest neighborhoods in the world, full of affluence, lots of cash flying around, but I don't want to live here. Why? Lots of people think I'm crazy. But, okay, let me go through some of the reasons. Starting with the more sort of practical things. Food quality here, for example, very, very low. Somehow, every time I'm reminded when I come back from Europe, when I come back here, that the food here is absolute junk. That there's a certain amount of aggressive capitalism in the food manufacturing sector that has led to about the lowest quality food that I've encountered in my travels anywhere. So Southeast Asia, all over Europe and everywhere else seems to have much nicer food than here. And basically the vegetables taste like plastic. The meat tastes like antibiotics, chemicals, etc. And the food here is just really bad quality. And there is an obesity crisis, which I can imagine is very much linked to this fact. And, all over North America, people have let Monsanto and all sorts of other companies who are only interested in the bottom line dominate the food sector, whereas where I live in Europe still has a lot of traditional agriculture, and the food just tastes a lot better, and I feel a lot healthier when I eat it. So food quality is a huge thing for me, why I don't live in Toronto or Canada anymore. Number 2, urbanism. I grew up in this neighborhood. It's called Moore Park. It's about 5 minutes driving or 2-3 kilometers away from downtown. Yet there's absolutely nothing here. There's no store, there's no, cafe, pub, restaurant, anything like that. The closest one is about 3 blocks down there, and there's just a little bit, not even a pub, but just a food store and a couple banks. And to walk to the place where all of that stuff is about 15 minutes from here. And this is really good compared to where a lot of people live in here, this is almost the city center, and there's nothing here, folks. So I live in the center of Belgrade, Serbia now, and I can't remember at 6 different addresses in the last few years that I lived outside of, more than 5 minutes away from a 24-hour supermarket, and, with cafes and pedestrian zones and all sorts of really wonderful, livable urban features in my neighborhood of Dorchal or other parts of Belgrade that I've lived in. And it makes a big difference to lifestyle, because here you pretty much have to own a car. If you want to live it's just normal to have a car here. The transportation is really basic. There's few subway lines. Okay, they're more than when I lived here, but you have to take a bus to the subway, and then on the other side of where you're going, depending where, you might have to take another bus after maybe 2 subways, and it's just a mess. Whereas in Belgrade, the urbanism is such that my neighborhood is well linked by a number of different bus lines to lots of different other parts of the city, and it's easy to get around, and it's easy to walk places. It's easy to get all you need in terms of shopping done without owning a car. So that's another reason. Another one would be that it is very expensive to live here. I mean, prices are going up every single year, folks. It's possible to make a lot of money here. That's true. I was charging $85 an hour for going into these houses and fixing their computers when I lived here, and that was very good. But ultimately, there's much better value for the money that you have abroad, and now, because of the internet, I can make money over the internet and spend it where I like. Where do I like to spend it? In the places that are cheaper, in the cities that are more, nicely arranged, and, in the places where the people enjoy life a little more than here. So that takes me to the next one, culture. I'm sure you all know that North America, specifically Canada, is not as culturally rich or vibrant as Europe or Asia or even Latin America. here is a very work-oriented, business-oriented culture, and it's a lot harder to have a good time, in my opinion, here than it is in Europe. And, you know, all of this stuff, like the food quality and the urbanism feeds into that, but it's also just a general mentality here, which is, you know, work goes before life. And you work to live, and you live to work here, and in other places you work to live. And, you know, the lifestyle here just isn't as fun. You know, people watch way too much television, they stay in their homes way too much, it's all related, folks, all of these things. It's just a general different lifestyle. And yeah, basically people here don't relate with each other as much. The culture is more like keep a distance from it. We've got the second biggest country in the world with a very minute population density, and people just do their best to avoid each other, and there's no culture. You know, it's like the language is not owned by, you know, Canadians. It's an English language that comes from England and is constantly being updated based on American language. And there's very little that you can say is Canadian about the culture, language, cuisine, or anything like that. And people here are just basically living a life that was a lifestyle and culture that was, you know, created in different places, and it's kind of inauthentic. You know, I don't like it, and that sort of feeds me back to the last thing I'm going to mention in this video is the rules. This place, Toronto, Ontario, is incredibly uptight. Good example would be the liquor laws. It's still, they only this year, I think, started selling beer in the supermarket. Before that, and still, to buy hard liquor, you have to go to a government-owned store. And when my dad was growing up in the 50s, he said that his father would have to take a liquor permit to the store where they would write on the liquor permit what you bought, and if you went back the next day to buy another bottle of whiskey, they would say, "Hello, sir, well, we can't sell you another bottle of whiskey because you bought a bottle of whiskey yesterday." So there's this sort of nanny state, there's this sort of puritanical and prude sort of thing going on here. You know, until the 70s, you had to order food with a beer at a bar, and if you went to change tables, you weren't allowed to walk with your drink. You had to have the waitress move your drink to another table if you wanted to talk to someone else. Well, now a lot of that has you know, been updated, but still bars are only allowed to stay open until 2 a.m., serve drinks until 2 a.m. And, you know, the same sorts of attitudes are in the culture, puritanical, you know, very restrictive and stuff like that, and I just don't like it. I felt like I was very much imprisoned in this culture, like I was different, more free-spirited, and people resented me for it. And that morality, that sort of restrictive morality, is one of the main reasons I left here. And okay, I'll just add one more little thing, which is tied into all the rest. It's hard to find women here who are my type. I know you're gonna say, Eric, this is Toronto, people come from all over the world, what do you want? You want Russia and Latinas, whatever, you know, you've got all types of women here. No. Everyone moves here for a boring middle-class life. Everyone moves here to accept the Canadian status quo, and, well, it doesn't result in the sort of women that I'm interested in, and I didn't like the person who I was here. That's another one. Yeah, okay, so women here, yeah, it's a very liberated 21st century sort of feminist society, and that's all good for me. But it doesn't result in the sorts of, I'm all for women having jobs, I'm all for women, you know, doing everything and having all the rights a man does, but I like feminine women, like the ones I find in Eastern Europe and stuff like that. And I didn't find many here. And the other reason why I left here is to escape myself. I grew up in this neighborhood. That made me a bit of a snob. To escape myself, my position in the society, I'm condescending towards other Canadians who have a less snobby upbringing than I do, and going abroad, I really left a lot of that behind and embraced and became the person that I wanted to be, rather than the person that my social class and family and neighborhood was telling me I needed to be. And I'm very thankful for it. After, 10 years ago, in 2008, I stopped calling this my home, and things have gone a lot better since then, and I've managed to, find my way on this planet, starting my business, Supportive Venture, supporting other people's adventures, people like me who want to explore the world while still making a living online. I made that business for that. I made my band Eric and the Worldly Savages, traveled all around Europe singing songs of freedom and empowerment. What can I say? I wouldn't have become this person that I am today had I not left here 10 years ago. I stopped living here 10 years ago. So that's it, folks. Thanks for watching. And I hope you stick around to watch my other adventures in Africa and Latin America this winter. World Beast 9000 on the streets of Toronto, the place where I'm so grateful to have grown up and had such a nice childhood, but ultimately left and became who I am today, the World Beast. Thank you very much, and take care.
Follow me on my adventures. Like and subscribe to World Beast 9000.